Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of the This Is Gonna Hurt podcast with J. Gordon Duncan. And if you're wondering why the J, the answer is, I'm not a bagpipe player. And if that joke doesn't make any sense, I encourage you to check out episode 0, where I explain that joke, as well as the purpose of the This Is Gonna Hurt podcast, where we talk about faith, family, fitness, finances, and sometimes fun. Hey, friends, and welcome back to the This Is Gonna Hurt podcast. I am so glad you're here, and as always, I begin with thanks. You guys are fantastic. You keep watching on YouTube and listening, so that means a ton. Thanks so much every single week. We got great feedback last week. It was great to be back in the studio. So again, Shane Dell, producer extraordinaire, makes me look way better than I actually am. But again, thank you everyone for being here, and the likes and the follows. And I've got a big announcement. Remind me, at the end, I've got a big announcement. So I'm already talking to Victoria. Everybody, this is my friend, Victoria Icenhower, and I'm so glad you're here. You've become a podcast star, and I don't take it personally that I'm like fifth in line. I assume you saved the absolute best. Like, well, when I've hit my pinnacle, I want to be on Gordon's show. Anyway, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm super stoked. I'm very glad that we have gotten to this point.
Good. So everybody needs to know who you are, but tell me a little bit about who you are. Give me your intro.
My intro. Well, I call myself a self-love scientist.
Love it.
I went from checking all the boxes according to like society standards of what a successful lifestyle looks like to just completely, I don't want to say burning it down, but like I took everything and started completely from scratch. Over the course of a year, almost a year. It'll be a year in March from just hitting the reset button for the first time because the one box I did not check was myself.
Oh, wow.
So.
Now, you kind of hit Control-Alt-Delete on your life. Like when you call into the local IT company and they're like, well, have you restarted the computer? So it's what it feels like. Because I met you maybe a year and a half ago, 2 years ago at the YMCA Luau. Yes. That's where I think it's the first time I met you.
Yeah.
And I got to know you through some mutual friends, but it was always sort of like, hey, how are you? And then there was a period of time where you kind of dropped off the grid. But we really weren't in contact. But I think I remembered it because I bumped into you, and I was like, oh, I haven't seen Victoria in a while. And then all of a sudden I began to see you out and about more and more and interacting and like a greater sense of joy every time I spent time with you. And then we started grabbing coffee. And so you had a corporate job. And I mean, I guess you had all the boxes, right? I mean, you had written, someone had written a script for you. And you followed that script. And then all of a sudden you decided, this isn't the script for me. How much of that story? Tell us some of that story. I want to hear it again.
Okay, so I grew up and I felt like I was born into a mission. Like I was like, okay, I'm going to go to school. I'm going to do really well. And when I graduate, I'll have my bachelor's. Check. Mm-hmm. I'm going to get a really good job. Check. Got it. I've gotten into a relationship. We're going to get married. Check. Mm-hmm. Okay, what comes next? Got a house. Check. Mm-hmm. Got a little dog. Uh-oh. Check. So this whole time I'm like literally going through the notions of like the next, like, okay, this is what's supposed to come next. And then finally I had all these checks. I had my degree, I had a job, I had the house, I had the marriage, I had the dog. And I got to a moment where I was like, what's next? Mm-hmm. Like, what do I do? Right. And I was working in contracting, and I did not fit in a box. I couldn't fit. I don't fit in the box. Mm-hmm. I don't belong behind a cubicle. That is not the work for me. It is the work for someone. Uh-huh. It is not the work for Victoria Icenhower.
Okay, I love it.
So I began to notice, besides like not feeling like I quite fit in there, over time I had always had this passion for like wellness and taking like self-care. And so I started integrating yoga while I was working in contracting to kind of like get myself out of the kind of like the stagnant, toxic, it was kind of toxic workplace.
Sure.
And when my first time doing yoga, I was on travel for work. And instead of joining the rest of the party to go like have a good time, party, drink, whatever, for me, I was like, I gotta do something different because I cannot keep up. My health was like declining. Mm-hmm. I was not happy with where I was. And so I signed up for a yoga class like on the spot, and it was on the beach. Okay. And I show up and I'm standing there getting ready, and I meet the instructor, and she looks at me and she's like, hey, it looks like you're holding on to a lot of things that don't belong to you. And I felt so seen for like the first time.
So you were seen, but were you scared? Or, I mean, like...
I was like trying to fake it. I was like, no, I'm great. But it was like, she like saw right through me. She's like, but I see you. And I can see that you're having a hard time.
Wow.
And for someone who, like for me, my approach was, I'm not allowed to ask for help. I'm not allowed to show weakness. I need to be strong. I'm very in my masculine. I'm like, no, I'm fine. Like,
right.
I'm okay. Like the movie Mighty Python where he has no arms and he's like, it's just a scratch.
I'm not dead yet.
So at that moment, it was like, I didn't know what, like, do I accept this? How do I receive feeling like I'm allowed to like experience this? And, we stayed in contact, and she ended up inspiring me. She's like, you need to start spending some time with yourself, meditating, yoga, integrate more of this self-practice. And the more time I spent in that, it started like that 5 minutes became 30 minutes, became an hour. And now, like, even now I have an hour to myself every morning. And it was this inner reflection period, which I'd never given myself before, because I was like, am I allowed to do that for me? And eventually a lot of things came up. It was like, whoa, I put a lot of energy into here, and that never makes me happy. I'm saying yes to things that don't feel aligned. I'm saying yes to a lot of things.
Right.
Why am I saying yes? And I was like, well, I don't want to be left behind. I want to feel validated.
Okay.
And so, yeah, a lot of inner work came into the mix, and I suddenly became inspired to... I was like, you know what? I'm going to become a yoga teacher because I'm so intrigued. And after becoming a teacher, I was like, I'm going to launch my own yoga business.
Yeah.
Took a leap there. And eventually, as I was starting the business and growing into this new version of myself, because I started setting up these boundaries, I started learning more about my health and just everything that was, everything that I had put on hold for who knows how long.
Right.
Because I was just so busy, like, with this, like, horse blinders up. And I was like, no, I gotta get the mission done.
Right.
And now my blindfolders were off. And I was like, look how colorful this world is. It's so beautiful. And eventually it got to the point where I was growing at a capacity and wanted to continue challenging, that it started to I wouldn't say ruin, but my relationships were changing. The relationships with my parents, the relationship with my, he's now my ex, relationship with friends. I started realizing who valued me. I realized when I started saying no and like what value came from that. And then eventually I had a really hard conversation one night with my spouse, and I said, I think we're coming to this point where we both deserve better. We tried changing each other. Like, I was growing and I want to be challenged, and he wanted to be comfortable.
Right.
And I said, I hear you, and I understand that this is where we part ways, because we could not keep up with this. So it was really tough. And that was last year.
Wow. Well, I don't want to interrupt the story,
no,
but I don't want to miss out on a couple of questions.
Yeah.
And so you said you were seeking validation. So for you felt like the pathway to the validation was following a certain script. Is that correct?
A certain script, and also making sure that everyone around me was happy and pleased.
Okay, so that was part of the narrative of the script, was achieve certain things that are very expected, and then along the way, make sure everyone around me is happy.
Yes.
Now, that's exhausting. I mean, people-pleasing is a weight, an absolute weight. So some folks call it a dark night of the soul, when all of a sudden you're like, this is it. Was that moment with the yoga teacher, or was there another moment where you had the quote-unquote dark night of the soul where things are going to be different today? Did you have like a singular moment? Was it the yoga teacher, or was there another? So it was another moment.
There was another moment. I feel that the yoga teacher moment was almost like the spark.
Okay.
Like the, here, it's almost like tasting, I don't know, just like biting into that juicy fruit for the first time, and you're like,
yeah.
The dark night of the soul, that's really like, That's deep.
We have those moments. I
No.
mean, and the bigger question is, then what do we do with them? But please, like, if you don't mind sharing.
Not at all. And I love that you asked that because I feel like this was a huge pivotal moment. So, for a while, in my relationship, we could feel like it was coming to a very slow burn. Like this was like we were faking it till we make it. And one night I was at home, just on my own, just hanging out, and I remember like just wanting to reach out and have that validation, and I didn't like it because he was out with his friends and he was like, I'm sure you can find ways to make yourself happy or something like that. And I remember sitting there and I got so angry and I started like sobbing and I was like, what am I doing? And I thought about everything because I was a year in my business, almost a year. And I was like doing this whole reflection on how I'm showing up online going, live your best life, say yes to what you love. But I wasn't doing that.
Right.
So I sat there, and this was not the first time I caught myself, I wouldn't say it would be, just shaming or comparing, but it was just like, why am I in this loop again where I'm like questioning everything, nothing's working. And then it got to the point where I saw myself at this crossroads.
Okay.
And it was like, I looked to my left and it was, just suck it up, keep going. You should be grateful. You have everything other people want. However, you will be here again. You will be here. Wow. You will cry. You will question. But it's fine because you have everything.
Okay.
I looked to my right and I could feel the joy. I could feel the terror of, this is the next best thing. You need to leave. You need to be ready. Like, what are you afraid to lose? Let everything go that you're afraid to lose and live the life that you were born to lead. And what that looked like was, you need to file for divorce. You need to put on your big girl shoes and lead yourself. And I sat there and I was looking left because that was comfortable.
Right.
I looked right and that was the challenge. And I was like, am I allowed to? I have a lot of shame. I have a lot of guilt because over here, it's, well, you have everything.
Right.
Over here, you're starting from nothing.
Right.
You will be alone. And I sat there and I was like, like waterworks, like no lie. And in that moment when it was like, the decision had already been made.
Okay.
And it was like this huge, it was either from the heart, it was either from like just, whether you want to call it God, source, universe, anything, whatever resonates best for you. But it was literally, all I heard was, I got me. I got you. I love you. You're going to be fine. So
what changed after that night?
So after that night, I had many, over the course of a few weeks, hard conversations with my, at the time, partner. And to get clarity. Because in that moment, that night, the decision had been made. Okay. It was like, we're going right, and we cannot go back now. So let's clear up a few things. And I think I was doing that to justify that decision. It was like, hey, I have some really tough questions to ask. And that looked like our growth. Like, what are we both looking for? Because we had been together for a long time. And it was now, we had changed. People change over, just everything. And we both realized it was like, we're not the same people when we started dating. We both have now two completely different ideas for what we want in a relationship, in a marriage. And it came down to, what do we want? What do we do? What's the least thing we want to do right now? And I was like, we're getting a divorce.
How soon, and I appreciate your intimacy, by the way. I mean, these things are sometimes very difficult to share. How soon did the divorce conversation happen after that night?
I would say when I finally like just said it, like you said that word, because it felt like it was like sitting in my throat for so long. After that, what would you call it? Dark night of the soul.
Dark night of the soul.
Oh man, it was dark. I can laugh. I feel good about it now because it was very empowering and very encouraging. I would say that moment it happened, and then when we finally had the conversation, it was, I want to say 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
So
okay.
2 months of, for me, it was like I was in mourning because
Mm-hmm.
I knew it was coming.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was just having these hard conversations because I think there was a part of me that was like, I can make this work. I can
Right.
fix this.
Right.
And I'm literally holding up, like I'm trying to scoop water up with my hands and
Right,
it's just running
right.
through my fingers.
Mm.
So I would say 2 months.
So you felt like there was an affirmation in that moment. Would you say, I got you?
I got me.
I got me?
Mm-hmm.
And so very quickly in that one moment, which you remember distinctly, is that one moment, that's what you felt like you heard or said, to where we're going to eventually get is self-love scientists.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where we're gonna track the pace from
Yeah.
I got me to self-love scientists, because they feel very connected.
Yeah.
They feel very connected. So just brief interjection. I mean, those moments are powerful. When I quit my job managing an eye clinic that was a very successful job and it made good money,
Yeah.
it was in a moment when you realize the pain and the difficulty that you've just been carrying and trudging through, and you think, and sometimes you are able to push through those moments, but there was that moment, mine was at 10 a.m., so it was the, dark morning of the soul or whatever it was, but when you realize there's no place to go back here.
Mm-mm.
Like it's the day of break. But it is, and all the answers aren't there, but it is liberating when you feel like I don't have to solve all of this anymore. It's not up to me to solve all of this. And so, yeah, those moments when we're able to make them healthfully can absolutely transform mental health and send you down a whole other rabbit hole of not having any money, eating ramen. So I got to bring up the ramen thing. So
Yeah.
I keep bringing it. So we're going to get to self-love scientists. We have to talk about ramen. So ramen is the 29-cent meal of champions. It'll feed anybody from an infant, to a college student, to someone who's starting all over again.
Mm-hmm.
So you've shared, okay, you've made this choice. House, dog, husband seem to all have gone to the side, and you're starting over brand new. Mm-hmm. Okay, and so and career, by the way. So it seemed like all of those things in the script were someone else's script. They weren't Victoria's script. And then there are a lot of nights of ramen. So share that story, but also share, was it okay? Were there nights where that was depressing, or were there days like, I eat this ramen and it's fuel for my dreams? I mean, like, what was it? I mean,
So yeah, so a part of that, once I had left and I went through the divorce process, I went from a 2-income household to 1.
Mm-hmm, right.
So I'm like in this process of rebuilding my life, getting to know myself, and I'm like thriving, and I'm like learning how to be an adult again, be
Mm-hmm.
independent. And I'll never forget it because I'm at the grocery store and I'm like, man, it's really expensive. And like going out to eat is kind of expensive. And I remember for a while I was like thinking, I'm better than that.
Okay, yeah. So I'm above it, maybe. I'm better. Yeah, I'm okay.
And I think it was because like for so long we were cooking, I was cooking meals, going out to eat.
Mm-hmm.
And so it took me a while to realize like, but that's okay. Like
Mm-hmm.
it is okay. It is absolutely, this is going to help me right now
Mm-hmm.
because better things are on the way.
Right.
So there were nights where, I was working or researching, learning, or, I love to move. So I'm like working out, and then I'm like, okay, instead of like having, a nice Italian pasta dinner with homemade sauce and tomatoes, I'm like, ramen on the stovetop.
Ramen on the stove, that's exactly right.
But at the same time, I knew that, like, right now, like, this was fine. This is okay. Because,
Mm-hmm.
again, it was for, like, you're making that sacrifice. Whenever you do make a choice, you're sacrificing something else. Mm-hmm. And I said, there are moments where I'll stand in my apartment and I'll look around when I feel either a little overwhelmed or, like, I start kind of questioning things.
Mm-hmm.
And then I realize how far I've come.
Nice, yeah.
And, I'm like, ramen's a part of that.
Yeah, it is.
And, you are allowed to have these ramen noodle nights.
Mm-hmm.
And the great thing that came from that is I've also been able to experience dining in, like, really just luxury places.
Sure,
I spent I've been able to, I go out to our favorite, like Fahrenheit. I also had the opportunity to dine at a Michelin restaurant in New York City.
Yeah.
Like it just.
And then you traveled alone.
Yes.
It was Italy? Is that where you went alone?
Paris.
Paris. You went to Paris alone.
Alone.
and all of a sudden I'm seeing photos online and it's like, is this green screen? What's going on? I think she's getting out of town. Of course not. And then, but beautiful food. Absolutely alone. Yeah. Absolutely alone.
Yeah.
So what did that feel like to take that trip by yourself?
So that one was, I had wanted to go back. That was my second time to Paris. This was my first time to Paris on my own. And I had the opportunity to go there, and at first I was like hesitant. I was like, I'm actually like, am I really going to do this? Am I going to, I have traveled alone in the U.S. before. Right. So I was like, well, what makes this difference? I'm like, well, I'm going up to New York. I'm going to be in a whole other country. And like, what does that look like? And I just made the reservations. I made the reservations for the flight, the hotel, and all that. I went into this, which was like a vacation, which was something I felt that I was like, I deserve this. Sure. Like after the year I've had. I remember thinking like, I'm not going to put anything on the list. I just want to enjoy, and I just want to soak in everything. Okay. And then that turned into like delicious food, and it turned into, like candlelight dinners, and turned into going to art museums and really blending in with their culture. Wow. And I remember sitting there thinking to myself, well, that wasn't so hard. Yeah. Why do we pent up like all this energy of like, which I've done before.
So were you sitting there drinking a cappuccino, eating an amazing meal? Did you think about ramen at any point? I'm serious. No, I mean that seriously. Did you think this is so far from stovetop ramen?
I think at one point I was sitting there. I was at a restaurant and it was super busy. I remember going in there because it was recommended by a local. And the guy looks at me and he's like, "Do you have a reservation?" I said, "No." And he's like, "Are you here by yourself?" I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Okay, you have a seat right here." And I had this beautiful braised lamb dish, and I'm sitting there and I'm looking around and people watching, and that's where I thought, I was like, well, this is, like, that's where the reality sat in of, like, how far I've come. That is not to say I still don't enjoy ramen noodles.
Well, you know what? Like,
because it works.
I mean, so I'll share a story. I mean, we have an old beat-up Honda Accord. 250,000 miles on it. It's 3 different colors with a dent in the side. It was my car for years. So, when you get your permit, that's the car we let you drive, right? Because it's all beat up. And so it's not the car I drive day in and day out. And so for whatever reason, I'm driving it this week. I'm just going to tell you, I love it. Like, it's not fancy. It's not the car you roll up into a business meeting with at all. But all week long, I've loved it. I've had it for 16 years. But it's something about it all week long. I was like, I need to do a post about this or talk about it or something, because it's just reminded me of so many different stages of life. And here is just this beat up car that I just absolutely love. And now my youngest is driving it. I don't know. There's sometimes when we just think about those moments of struggle or those moments that just aren't perfect. If we have a mission or if we have a direction or if we're living that out, those things become actually joyful. And they're not moments of, misery or I shouldn't have to eat ramen or I shouldn't have to drive a beat up car.
It's that simplicity of like, actually like everything is perfect. You're in your car and you're like, I'm on my way to a client. Yeah. And I feel like a winner.
I feel great. Yeah.
I'm eating my ramen in my apartment and I'm looking around going, I love my life. And I'm happy with this ramen in my mug.
Both of those are reminders of how, our mindset is everything about our circumstances. And when our mindsets are poisonous or self-sabotaging, we could be in a Michelin restaurant or we could be driving the nicest car or whatever the case may be, and we could absolutely be miserable. We could be following the script and have everything, but then, misery is not there. So how did you begin retraining your mind? It couldn't just be, okay, I've got the new Victoria script. It can't just be all of that. That's, of course, part of it. But how did you begin to retrain your mind towards a new life?
Well, I learned when I moved out into the apartment, and I actually have a video of like what it looked like, like getting used to like having the mattress on the floor, having to go in and like build everything by myself. And it took me a while because with the end of a relationship, your identity goes with it.
Yeah.
That whole script,
sure.
like the script we're saying, the script kind of went with it. And it was almost like there had always been another script in the background. It's always been there. And now it's like slowly like bringing it to the light. Like, you have so much potential now. What do you want to do first? And it was, I need to work very, very hard. At the same time, how do I want to show up? Like, what is it that I want? And how do I want to feel? And what do I see my future? What does this look like for me? How do I want to be treated? And so I started initiating these, I call it learning to romance yourself. And I started getting to know who I am, like who I was, without having this expectation for someone else, whether it's a parent, another boss, or a partner. It was like, nope, I'm showing up for myself. So what does this person look like? And so I started just reading a lot of self help books, healing books. I started going and becoming more active in the community and listening to a lot of podcasts. And I think I started saying yes to the things that I never gave myself permission to do before, because it was like, no, someone will do this for me. No, it's like the ramen noodle. I'm too good for ramen noodles. And now it became, actually, I think I will go take myself out to dinner. Okay. Make reservations for one. Or, I will take my car and drive out to Shenandoah. I started doing a lot of things independently on my own. Okay. Before that, there was that fear of like, and I think this comes from like this whole societal, like we're kind of born into wanting that companionship, whether it's a friend or a lover or anyone else. It's when you start doing the things that you enjoy or have been wanting to do, you're capable of doing it on your own, and you make it into a whole experience. And then just that over time of learning of what I enjoy, I started like having these new boundaries with myself. I was like, wow, I am capable and I am smart. Yeah, okay. And then it turned into the Paris trip. Like, I've traveled a few times. If I can take myself out to dinner, I can take myself to Paris. Sure. It became less of a, like, oh, that's really high to, like, go all the way to Paris. I was like, it's not as, it's not as steep as we're making it out to be. It doesn't have to be a scary thing. It's working up the courage to recognize your potential and what you deserve.
So there becomes a trajectory of, I'm living out the script of someone else's life. And a yoga teacher, pierces you, which is great. Then you have this dark night, and you're like, okay, 2 months later, you say the word divorce. And then a discovery of self, self-love. And so I've got a question there. But then you get to self-love scientist. So this is where we're going to get to the self-love scientist part. When you used the word self-love, did you have the opposite? I mean, did you self-loathe? Self-pity? What was before that in this journey before self-love?
I think, would you say before like the dark night?
Before the dark night, yeah.
I think there was, I found myself hitting guilt and shame because at certain moments, like even over time with this other relationship, it was, well, I should be grateful, and there was always a part of me that was craving something more. And it was like, nope, just stay quiet, stay here, and following that other's written script. I was like, but I don't fit in here,
it's interesting. Like if we look at the word guilt, it's a big word for a small word, So Christianity would say guilt is a recognition you violated God's law. Others would say guilt is a violation of my own character. And so in that situation, when you said you're walking through that and you felt guilty, I mean, how did you define it at that point in time when you said you felt guilty?
What do you mean?
Well, you said you felt guilty when you were in this process of, discovering who you were, and maybe you were in the wrong, you were following out a script. So you said you felt guilty. So what did you feel guilty about?
I think I felt guilty about considering a better life.
Okay, so you felt guilt, I feel guilt to even think about having something different than what I have now.
Yeah.
Like, I should feel fine with everything I have.
I should be happy.
Okay, I should. A bunch of shoulds. Yeah.
Yeah, should. It is what it is.
Should. I got you.
And it was, it was, like I said, that dark night,
Mm-hmm.
that was not the first time I had found myself there. It was, we've been here before, and if you keep this up, you're going to be here again because you keep putting yourself on the back burner because there's this,
Right.
there's a core fear of being alone, especially as a woman.
Sure,
I'm going to be alone if I make this move, I'm going to be by myself, which in terms I learned in Paris that I am not alone. I am free. I'm simply free.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that moment then becomes part of the self-love journey, and then you say, I'm a self-love scientist.
Yeah.
So I love it. So I'm going to dig down on this because I love it. Because I mean, you and I get to work together, but I want to dig into this. So if I said I was a nuclear physicist, which is the most laughable thing in the world, I'm going to need know something about nuclear fission. I'm going to need to be an expert on it. Even when I was an English teacher, that needed to be my field. It needed to be something I was comfortable with. So to be a self-love scientist, and by the way, it's just the best coinage as a coach. I love it. But you're saying, hey, listen, I understand the discovery and the pathway of self-love enough that then I can help you do the same. Is that accurate? Tell me a little bit about what you think self-love scientist means.
So I coined myself the self-love scientist because I have a background in science. So that looked like understanding the mechanics of the body, how we're feeding, and like the way our environment, which includes people, food, money, everything, factor into our wellness. And so as I started developing this new relationship with myself on this self-love journey, I was applying everything I had learned. I was applying everything I learned in the books, everything I learned in yoga, and just
I love it.
Taking it out. I think what I get really excited about, though, is the self-love scientist is being able to, I think, are we going to get into the...
Oh, yeah. That's my next question.
Okay.
It's my next question, but you're already there.
Yeah.
So if you want to hop ahead, go ahead. So,
Okay.
Here's the question. So you and I are working together, and you're developing a coaching program. And I was like, you need to tell everybody what you are.
Yeah.
So I take zero credit. I'm just saying you needed to get to the point to tell everybody exactly where self-love scientist goes.
Yeah.
And it's been exciting in the last month or so to see you become more bold and more confident in that. So tell everybody else, what kind of coach are you?
I am a sex coach.
Okay, it's okay. Like
yes!
nothing in the walls fell down. Nothing fell over
I know
when you
the
said that.
power's still on.
But what does that mean? What does that mean?
So a sex coach is rebuilding, reconnecting this trust, these boundaries. It's learning to love yourself, putting yourself first, experiencing and knowing that you are worthy of pleasure, of receiving gifts, abundance, being confident in this life against all odds. And that does look like, saying no. It looks like taking yourself out to dinner. It looks like, do you take a bath? Do you pleasure? Do you self-pleasure? Do you plan yourself a nice little date night, wear the lingerie or boxers, like whatever? So, and that came from this rebuilding my identity. I learned so much within all these different experiences from me saying yes to and rebuilding, putting myself up to a standard of, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening for me.
Right.
And this is something I've always looked for, and I was able to get myself there because I gave myself the permission and I worked towards it and I put in the work to get there. And I learned the power that comes from just owning up to and showing up in a light that's different and being okay to be like, yes, I do stand out.
Right.
Yes, I am. I'm different with a purpose. I'm different for a wonderful cause, and I'm bringing in something that's taboo and turning into something more sacred.
Right.
And I am wanting to just educate and empower women like, hey, this is a beautiful thing. This is amazing. Like, and it's not just the physical act of sex. It's the emotional, it's the intimacy that you can have with yourself. And once you have that with yourself, you're emitting from a frequency of love, and you can show up even better in your relationships at the workplace, in just your overall sense of purpose. You go from, oh, I'm just getting by, to I love my life. I'm happy to be here. You know, it could be raining outside. I'm like, it's a beautiful day.
Yeah.
Like, I'm so grateful.
So seeing, learning that self-expression as being an opportunity to open you up to be more present in all areas.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have begun telling folks locally or online that you're a sex coach, and then someone privately comes up and like, I have questions for you. And so what's the reception been like? Obviously, we don't need to know anybody specific, but what's been the reception? What kind of questions are people asking? You know, what's the reception been like since you've started telling people your focus?
When I started expressing that, you know, I am a sex coach, and that looks like, you know, educating women on to receive pleasure by, you know, starting to pleasure yourself. I had a I'm giggling because it's so funny. I had surprisingly in person more people come up to me and it's like, I heard what you do now, and I am so excited.
Okay.
I'm so proud, and I cannot wait to tell my friends.
Okay.
Because, and then they would explain to me how they have their friends who are living in that stagnant, you know, horse blinders up kind of lifestyle, and they're like, we need your fire, we need your passion. And that makes me excited.
Well, affirmation. Yeah.
Yes.
Affirmation of who you truly are, not affirmation to follow a script.
Exactly. I've had, you know, so the influx in person has been amazing. And like we were talking about earlier, it's being at the coffee shop, and I could sit there and someone's like, introduce me like, oh, this is Victoria. And like, hi, I'm Victoria. I'm a sex coach. And they're like, I'm sorry, one more time.
Well, there's the big taboos of the world are sex and money and a couple others. And people can easily say, well, I'm a financial planner, or, you know, I'm a money coach, or, you know, those kind of, that kind of language is more acceptable, but you still can't say, what kind of cash did you make last year? You know, like those conversations get, you know, reduced or minimized or taboo. But where you're going is societally, like in society, it appears to be almost like an extra step, like even beyond that.
It's like a little spicy.
Yeah, so you're trying to take that topic that the more the taboo it becomes, the more difficult it is for people to express, and then make it a safe place to have that conversation.
Exactly. Like some people are, like I said, when people hear it, they ask me to say it one more time because like, are you sure you said the right word?
You're gonna begin saying, I'm a sex coach, and yes, what I said was I am. You're
and
like,
yes.
Let me help you, like by repeating it again.
Yes, let me repeat that, and that's what I would put in like my tags for my content. I was like, yes, you can read it one more time.
That's right.
That is not a spelling error. And I think that was another like really big leap, was putting it out there for everyone to see. And because for so long I was, you know, I was saying self-love scientist. I was like, learn to love yourself.
Which again, I think it's very
it's
good.
Great.
I love it. Yeah,
it's great. But then people were like, you know, and working with you, it was like, you're really passionate about, you know, he's like, you're really passionate about women's sexual wellness. Why don't we talk about that? And I was like, that's a great question. Why don't we?
Right.
And so once I put it out there that I was a sex coach, aside from like the beautiful positive confrontations in person, there have been some where it was like, I think you need to dim it down. And I was like, I did that, I tried that, I was that, and I cannot go back now. I was like, no, this lights me up. When I wake up, I'm like, I cannot wait to share with this. I cannot wait to inspire. I cannot wait, you know, X, Y, and Z.
So we do have to be mindful of time. So those are the two questions. So I do want to talk a little bit about what's it like for you to interact with people who are a bit more critical about what you're doing. And then I want to talk a little bit about goals and dreams, because we had a conversation about that a minute ago, which I'm enjoying. So right now, where you're at, and I'm sure this is also a process of growth for all of us and for you, how are you handling people who are critical of what you're doing?
I hear what they have. I listen in, and because the way I approach conversations and the way I approach a lot of things is I see things from all perspectives. So it's like, I hear what you're saying. I appreciate you bringing this to my attention. However, this is my direction. This is my route. This is where I'm headed.
Right.
And I'm very excited. And to fold back to make you feel comfortable that's not who I am anymore. You know?
I appreciate that. I try not to use the word hater at this point in time, because it's very cliche. But I do think the word naysayer is very appropriate. And I think quite often criticism is naysaying, in some way people are telling you you can't do that in some sort of veiled criticism. And so naysayers, unfortunately, are exactly what happens when people break away from the pack.
Yeah.
And so, but when you break away from the pack, you're like, I can't imagine being back in the pack again. So, no criticism of the other folks, but you find your pathway, and you're going to walk yours. So, let's talk about that. Goals. Like, where do you want to go with this? How big do you want it to be? What do you see? What do you want for yourself in Lotus lifestyle and being a sex coach and self-love scientist? Where are you hoping this goes?
Oh, this is going to get big.
Okay.
We can feel it. It's getting big. Like, already for the month of January, I've become, like, my goal is to become well-connected in the community and then be viral.
Yeah.
So when people say, like, have you met Victoria? And they're like, who? And they're like, hold on. I got to show you this.
Right.
Or even when people think of yoga, or if someone... if you're having a conversation and then sex comes up, or like body confidence or pleasure, it's like, I know who you should talk to.
Right.
Like, she's the bee's knees.
I love it. So, okay.
And so it's building up that connection, that repertoire. And then it's like right now the coaching program is for women because of like everything I continue to research and I'm a huge advocate for and I follow up on. I have had men reach out and ask, like, when will this be available for me?
Right.
And I'm like, I hear you. That's coming.
Right.
So stay tuned.
Okay.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, okay.
Stay tuned for that. And then I see this becoming even bigger, where I find myself speaking at seminars, events, and just to educate and empower everyone that this is actually a beautiful and an amazing thing that can completely change your perspective and the way your on look. And I also believe, like, maybe a couple of years from now, a book.
Sure, of course.
I see a book coming out to tell the story, because it's literally going through all these taboo topics, from divorce to ramen noodle diet. We didn't touch on it, but dating. That's a whole nother thing.
We haven't even talked about that. So,
They can read all my content on dating on my accounts. And then becoming a sex coach, which is also another taboo topic. Like you said, money, politics, everything's so hush-hush. Like, we don't have to be hush-hush.
Right.
We can sit there and be as vivid and colorful, make it messy, make it loud.
Well, I think what I love seeing you do, and for folks who want to make an impact, if you want to make an impact, the goal's got to be ubiquitous. Like, find me everywhere. Like, I want you to turn around and think marketing coach. I want to turn around and think sex coach. I want to turn around and think, if you want to make an impact, the biggest problem is that we're not known. That's always the starting point. Whenever you start something, well, no one knows who you are. They can't work with you. They can't pay you. They can't be impacted unless you're known. And that's the starting stage, typically, of naysayers. They're like, what are you doing? I see you everywhere. And part of me's like, yes, you saw me. Exactly. It's like, but you do, but you have heard of me. Right. And so, but that's part of it, is just getting the message out. So right now at this stage, how are you maintaining patience as the growth happens and you want to see these things happen? Like, are you patient as you go along? Or do you have moments of like, I'm impatient, I'm ready for this to happen now? How is it?
I won't lie, like, I get really excited. Where I was like, I just want to blow up.
Yeah.
However, like, there are moments, like this past week I had, I met with a couple people this week, and it was like a reminder of hearing, like, yeah, I heard from a friend, this is what you do.
There you go.
And I was like, I'm on my way. And in the past, I had learned not to rush something that's going to be so big and so beautiful. And at the same time, it's, what can I do in this, like, I read the 10X.
Yeah.
So it's like,
it's a
that's
whole
why.
other podcast.
I know.
It's a whole other podcast. That book messed you up so badly. So.
But it was just like, how am I utilizing, this time and space to start to continue adding these building blocks? Because I can't sit there and be like, and now I'm a speaker. Right. It's like, but if you call me tomorrow,
I'm there. Yeah.
I will be there.
Just tell me how long I got.
How long? Yeah. But I can't reach out and be like, okay.
Right.
Millionaire, speaker, podcast, and the book's out tomorrow. It's like, actually, no, I need some time. So I'm learning to nurture the process.
Yes, very much so.
As a self-love scientist, I can do all the things. I can set up all the coffee chats or, visits. But I also need to remind myself that I am also a human being.
Mm-hmm.
So sleep,
Yep.
take a break,
Mm-hmm.
put my phone on D&D.
It would make no sense
How
for
can I
you
show
to not
up?
do those things when what you're promoting. But,
Exactly.
well, it's interesting. I mean, I made the choice in May of last year. A video is going to go out every single day,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not taking. You can get 13 videos or 13,000. Like it's going out, and the only ones I've ever taken out is if I've looked back and I said that's inconsistent with my message, right? If it flops, it flops. One day someone will find it, right?
Yeah.
But the good thing is it gets to the point where people say, well, I've been watching your content. And that's always one of my happiest moments because I know, okay, I don't know which one of the 180 videos that I put out last year, but you've been watching them. Because now, in the place you're in, you get to educate every single day. You also get to entertain. Your TikToks are fantastic. But you get to entertain and educate every single day.
Mm-hmm.
And then on our side of the grind, we have to look and go, and they're out there watching it. And then I don't know which one of the 1,000 people who saw my video today is going to reach out, but at some point in time, they're going to say, I watched your content. And that's the challenge and the difficulty is we just try to be patient.
Yeah.
But consistency, you're ubiquitous. Be everywhere, and that will do it. So I can see the impact you're making. I mean, you're definitively on the arc of people knowing more and more about what you're doing. So I want to commend you. You're doing a great job with that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And you've really helped me along the way too.
Oh,
so
it's
I'm really
fun.
glad that
Thank
you've been
you.
a part of
Thank
my
you.
circle.
Thank you.
Who's involved in my circle has also greatly impacted the way I show up.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy to be a part of your circle. It's a blast. But you're right. Who do we allow to influence what we're doing? Who do we share intimacies with? Who do we allow to strategize with?
Yes.
I've got my mentor above me is on speed dial. And like today, I just texted him and I was like, I need 10 minutes this weekend to make sure I'm not making a mistake. He's like, yeah, sure. He's just call me Saturday, Sunday. And it means like he's smarter than I am, more accomplished than I am, in a lot of ways what I would like to be. But having him in my circle and just knowing he's like, yeah, dude, call me Saturday, Sunday. I got time for you. It means everything in the world because I can lay out, all right, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. Is this a mistake? And then I weigh his opinion heavily. So you're right. Our circles, they change really, really quickly.
They change as you're growing.
And if you've got aspirations, dreams, entrepreneurship, impact, folks need to be a part of that dream and that same kind of shared vision in some way to stay in that circle.
Yeah.
Yeah, which makes sense, but that's also part of the journey of leaving one place into the next. So anyway, I don't need to philosophize. You're doing a great job. It's exciting to see. So for everybody who's watching, I'm going to include everything in the show notes, but tell us where to find you right now. How do people find you?
I'm most active on Instagram.
Okay.
And I'm at Victoria_Icenhower.
Mm-hmm.
And then my Facebook page is Victoria Icenhower Lotus Lifestyle. I am on TikTok at I'm Victoria's.secret. I think it's like at I'm Victoria's.secret.
Okay.
I'm thinking about changing that to the Self-Love Scientist.
Yeah.
But, just I think having my name and then associated with my image is good for
That makes sense.
business.
Well, these days people just start 3 TikToks.
3 TikToks.
I know people who have 3 accounts and put the same thing out on each account. They just
What?
change the hashtags
Oh.
and they use it as like A, B, and C testing.
Yeah.
So anyway, we'll get into that, but it becomes more to manage. But yeah, I know
Yeah.
folks who just have multiple TikTok accounts, and one of them would be Lotus Lifestyle, one would be Self-Love Scientist, one would be Victoria. But anyway, we'll get that strategy for later. I don't want to distract.
No.
So right now, Instagram is probably the best place to connect with you.
Instagram is a great place. Facebook is where my Facebook business page is. TikTok, and then email is victoria.lotuslifestyle@gmail.com because I've met some great folks who don't have any other social media means. So I'm also available through email.
Awesome.
So.
Well, thank you. We'll put all those in there. It's incredible to watch your journey. You're just absolutely killing it. Guys, thanks so much. Please, please, please. You'll find all of Victoria's information on there. If it's not something that would work for you, if you know someone that might be helpful for, please point them in Victoria's way. So I want to say thanks again, everybody, for liking and sharing and all the stuff you do. That means a lot. You know, that would be great if you could like, comment, share, subscribe, and all those things. And I didn't forget my announcement.
Your big
announcement. I did. I figured my announcement. So a couple of weeks ago, we had the Breaking the $250,000 Barrier seminar, and it is coming up again on February 16th. So that's all I'll say now, but soon you'll see all the links and the registrations for all that. So that's coming up. I'm excited to do that again. We have a new VIP that'll be with us in the third hour. So more of that. Thank you for being here. It means a ton. And everybody, I will see you again next week. Thanks, gang. Bye-bye.
How do you shorten the time it takes to buy a car? Car buying just got easier. Pohanka365.com lets you complete as much or as little of the car buying process online. Pohanka365.com. Car buying simplified. Anytime, anywhere.
Small business owners, you should be praised for wanting to grow your business. That's a good thing, and not everybody has the guts to do it. As a business owner myself, I know you've overcome obstacles that people don't even know about. Hi, my name is Gordon Duncan, the owner of Capitalized Marketing and Consulting, and I want you to know that if your business hasn't grown like you want it to, it's not your fault. If it's not COVID getting in the way, it's ridiculous things like changing social media algorithms. You're right in thinking that very few people are doing small businesses any favors right now. But Capitalized Marketing and Consulting is here to help. We've created a 90-day course that is guaranteed to grow the revenue of your business. It will give you the tools that you've been looking for, and as a certified coach, I would be with you along the way. If you would like to learn more about our program, just visit CapitalizeYourBest.com and get started enjoying the success you deserve. Again, that's CapitalizeYourBest.com, and I can't wait to celebrate all you accomplish.